In today's episode, number 142, our main topic is going to be mortgage options for buyers who are new to Canada. We'll also touch on a few points on how to get your home ready for the market and talk about some home insurance options. All on this episode of Winnipeg's Real Estate Podcast.
You're listening to the Boknows Real Estate Podcast. Tips and advice for home buyers, sellers, and owners with award-winning RE/MAX agent, Bo Kaufman.
As many of you hopefully know, I'm a professional real estate agent specializing in helping home and condo buyers and sellers in the Winnipeg market area. That's how I earn a living, and I absolutely love what I do. I love interacting with people, explaining, teaching new things about real estate and home ownership, and educating buyers and sellers along the way. That's how this podcast was born. It's a labor of love. I don't charge for ad spots or collect money from it directly. If I mention or promote a local business or service, it's because I've either used it myself or recommended it to friends and family, and I've had great feedback. So if you find this podcast useful, please download the free podcast app right to your phone. It's super easy. Just go to boknows.homes/apps, and you can choose from Apple or Android apps. So let's dive right into this week's episode. As we're entering the late fall of 2020, and if you're thinking of selling your home in either the late winter or early spring next year, believe it or not, now is the time to start planning. Call your agent now to do a walkthrough and give you an honest and direct feedback on your home. This is the time for critical, unvarnished information, so don't be offended. And, we hope that the agent is forthcoming enough to tell you what, if anything, you should fix. So it might be hard to hear this criticism because as a homeowner, you naturally love your home and you don't want to be told any bad news. But it is important to get that information now before buyers come through the house. So this week on Winnipeg's Real Estate blog, I have a post about 6 things that you need to do to prepare your home for sale. Whether it's late winter or spring, start a few months early. The link is in the show notes as well. Which brings me to another topic as well. I may mention that links are in the show notes, and depending on where you're listening to this, you may not be able to see show notes. If you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple or Google or Amazon or whatever podcatcher you're listening to, it may not have the show notes. Very easy. I've set it up to be very simple to access. Just go to boknows.homes/142. That's the number of the episode. If you go to boknows.homes/142, you'll see all the show notes with all the links and explanations below. And now a spotlight on a local business. If you're buying a house or a condo and getting a mortgage, like most people are, you will be required to get property insurance. Whether it's a bank, credit union, mortgage broker, it doesn't matter who you're going to deal with. If they're loaning you money to pay for the home, you will need to get property insurance because they need their investment protected. Lots of insurance providers out there, but my favorite property insurance company is Hughes Insurance. They're located at 57 Goulet Street in the Dominion Shopping Center at the foot of the Norwood Bridge. There's a couple of reasons I like them. The first one, on a professional note, they are an insurance broker, which means that they deal with a variety of insurance companies and can offer you different options. Like different companies have different options. So for example, a fairly new one is what's called sewer service line protection. Now that's the line that runs from your house to the city sewer line. And depending on how old your house is, that line may be 60, 80 years old. And if it ever breaks, you, the homeowner, are going to be responsible for replacing it. And guess what? That's thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. In addition to that, some companies may be cheaper but have higher deductibles. So you as the homeowner are well advised to take a look at a number of different options and make an educated and informed decision. An insurance broker will shop around and give you the different options. So on a professional level, that's why I like Hughes Insurance. On a personal level, I know the owner, Darcy Cook. His family has owned this insurance brokerage since 1929. Darcy and his super friendly staff have been protecting your peace of mind since 1929. That's actually their catch line. So call Darcy at 204-837-1960 and tell him Bo sent you. So up next, we're going to make a phone call to my friend Mike Schroeder of Mortgage Architects. I call him Mortgage Mike. And we're going to talk about mortgage options for people that are new to Canada, whether they're landed immigrants or whatever other statuses they are. There are mortgage options for people that are new to Canada to buy a house or a condo. And we're going to find out what those options are right after this.
Darcy's Animal Rescue Center in Winnipeg is a charitable organization which helps save and protect our four-legged friends. Since its start 15 years ago, Darcy's has saved and found new homes for over 10,000 cats and dogs in our city. Darcy knows pets. Bo Kaufman of Remax Performance Realty is a proud supporter of Darcy's Animal Rescue and now makes this special offer. Buy or sell your house or condo in Winnipeg using Bo as your agent, and he'll donate $250 towards Darcy's ARC if you mention this offer. Call Bo Kaufman to help you sell or buy your next home in Winnipeg. Bo knows real estate.
You know, funny things happen. Mike and I had actually planned this episode several weeks back to discuss the options for new to Canada home buyers. So it was completely fortuitous that I received a voicemail from a potential and future home buyer in England. This gentleman apparently wants to move to Canada in about a year from now, and he's got questions about options for getting mortgages and what the costs are involved in buying a house. Here's his voicemail.
Oh, hi, Bo. I hope you're well. I'm a podcast listener from the UK. My lovely wife is a Winnipegger, and we're looking to move back to Winnipeg with our young kids in a year or so. And my question is this. Aside from the usual down payment and taxes, is there anything else you think we may need to consider when buying in Winnipeg when moving from abroad, particularly in relation to mortgages and credit? Otherwise, thanks for doing the podcast. It's a nice way to stay in touch with what's happening over there. All the best. Bye.
Now, first of all, let me say I really love getting feedback like that. It tells me that there's actually people listening and it's making a difference. That's really good. Very simple way for you to leave me a voicemail like this by simply going to my podcast website page, which is at boknows.homes/podcast. Or if you go to this episode in particular, boknows.homes/142, every time you go to my site, a little microphone will appear at the bottom of your screen. Just click it and leave me a voicemail. You will be required to leave an email address, and I will get back in touch with you. I will play, or I probably will play your voicemail, but I take your name out to keep it private. Love to hear from you. But for now, let's call Mike and see what he has to say. Hey, Mike, it's Bo Kaufman. How are you doing today?
Hey, doing well. How about yourself?
Excellent, excellent. So you heard I sent you that question from that gentleman in England who's thinking of moving to Winnipeg.
Correct. And so in answer to his question, the first question is, how much of a down payment do you have? He's asking to determine what type of credit and income information we need. For example, if you have a 25% down payment and you've been in Canada for 3 years or less, it doesn't matter about your income or immigration status. We can get you a mortgage at a competitive rate.
That kind of threw me there. It's 3 years or less.
Correct, 3 years or less. So if you've been in Canada for less than 3 years, you're good to go.
With 25% down.
That's correct, yes. And then you can be a student. You don't have to have employment. You don't even have to have credit. That's the requirement on it.
Cool.
Mm-hmm. So now, as we go down from there, so the next level down would be, let's say, a 10% down payment. So if you have a 10% down payment, you'll have to have been at your job and in Canada for 3 months, and you need to show a letter from your bank saying that you have a history of making payments. The next step down there would be 5% down payment. If you have a 5% down payment, you do have to be in Canada typically for 12 months, so for 1 full year, and have a letter from your landlord showing you've paid your rent on time. So those are the sort of the with the descending amounts of down payment, what's required to get a mortgage in Canada.
Okay, what about a job? If 5% down, you're here for a year, you still have to do a qualifying employment, right?
Correct, yes. You still have to have a job. You have to be off of probation. And most lenders have a 1 to 3 month probationary period.
Okay, so let's go back to that first one. Really, if you're in the country, even a student, a refugee, anybody who's in the country for less than 3 years can buy a house. And I understand you just recently did a mortgage for somebody. Tell me about that.
Correct. And so we helped a couple where there was two brothers had been in Canada for about 10 years, and they just brought their parents over from Asia. And their parents wanted to buy a house. Well, they brought over money with them. So their parents did not have a job. They did not have any income in Canada. But because they just came here and they had a 25% down payment, they were able to buy a nice house close to their kids.
Wow. Okay. That's really awesome. That's good. And the rate for those people was?
They got a rate of 2.14% on a 5-year fixed.
That's nothing to sneeze at. That's really good. Okay. So this gentleman who's coming from England, it really depends on how much money he's got down. If he has 5% down, he needs to be here for a year and have a job and qualify and all that kind of stuff.
Correct. The only exception on that, and there is one exception on that he can get a house more quickly, is that if he has an Equifax credit report. So some countries do report to Equifax, and I believe England may actually be one of them. So if we can pull his Equifax credit report, we might be able to get him an exception to get a house in 3 months or less. But that's on an exception basis.
Still has to have a job, though. He still has to be working and showing income.
That is correct. You'd have to be working a job and you'd have to be off of probation.
Okay, and the only way to avoid that whole job thing, that pesky little, I've got to prove that I have income, is by putting 25% down.
That is correct, yes.
Okay, awesome. Any other tips you want to share?
The only other thing I would suggest is that if you just moved to Canada and you want to buy a house shortly, make sure that you get some alternative forms of credit in your name. So, for example, you might not want to get a car loan or a credit card, which is understandable. But instead, if you register the utilities in your name, cell phone in your name, internet service, or even something like car insurance, if you make those payments on a regular basis, those count as alternative credit. So you don't actually have to borrow money to build credit. You just need to be showing that you have a track record of making monthly payments. And so if you'd like a strategy of how to establish your credit so that you can get a house when you're new to Canada, I'd be happy to walk you through that process.
Awesome. And then so you're ready to accept phone calls or emails from people who need some advice in that field.
Exactly. It's what I do for a living, and I really enjoy it.
So share with me your email and your phone number.
Certainly. So my email address is mortgage@mikeschroeder.ca, and it can always be reached at 204-229-3214.
And I was just thinking about those tips you just gave me. Probably the best thing, of course, the bills is a great way, but the best thing is to get a credit card and not abuse it. Because if you buy a car, now you're obligated to make those $300-400 a month, whatever it is. But if you get a credit card, start using it and paying it off right away. That's probably the best way to establish that kind of a credit history.
It is. And make sure you get it with a credit card with at least a $2,000 limit, because otherwise a lender may not recognize it.
Gotcha.
The other possibility, especially if you don't have a down payment saved up yet, would be either getting an RRSP loan or a GIC loan. Because number one, it builds your credit. Number two, it helps you save towards the down payment. So you can kill two birds with one stone.
That's right. Put your money into an RRSP, keep it there for 3 months, and then you can take it out and use it as a down payment.
Yeah. Or we can also arrange an RRSP loan. We can loan you the money for the RRSP. You make payments on that to help establish credit as well.
Wow.
So a few little tips we can do.
Yeah, killing like 5 birds with one stone.
Exactly. Plus you get that bigger income tax return from lowering your taxable income.
Absolutely. Okay, Mike, it's been, as always, really educational. I appreciate it. And as always, I look forward to the next one.
Beautiful. We'll talk again later. Take care.
You betcha. Bye, Mike. And welcome to a new section in this podcast. It's money-saving tips for homeowners and those who want to be. I don't know why I didn't think about this topic before. It fits in so naturally into this podcast. So here we are. I got to come up with a catchy name for this, and I'm open to ideas. Today, I want to talk about saving money on water bills. A 1999 study by the American Water Works Association Research Foundation, there's a mouthful, did a study on residential end uses of water. And they found that out of all the water used in a home, 27% goes down the toilet, 22 in the clothes washer, 17 in the shower, 16 through a faucet, and 14 is just plain lost through leaks. If your toilet was manufactured before 1994, it wastes up to $100 a year on water. And a toilet made prior to 1980 wastes a whopping $200 a year. So if you have an older home, replacing those toilets will, over time, amount to a great investment. Energy-saving dual flush toilets range in price for around $300 to $400, plus installation. That means a return of around a minimum of 25% a year. Plus, unlike earlier models which require 2 or 3 flushes, today's water-saving toilets can often do the job in just 1 flush. Not to mention that it increases resale value of your home as well. If you're inclined to sell it in the near future, this is an upgrade that's worthwhile. Another item to consider are low-flow shower heads. 70% of the water that comes through the shower head passes through your water heater first, adding an extra expense. They're easy to install, and modern types actually change the shape and velocity of the water to provide a high-flow feel, all the while saving you money. One last tip along the same line: wash your clothes in cold water as much as possible. Just like with that shower head example, most of the water entering the warm or hot cycle of your washer had to come through your water heater first. I don't know what it's like in your city, but here in Winnipeg, our sewer bill is directly tied to water consumption. So if you save $1 on water, you're actually going to save a corresponding amount on the sewer bill as well. So using the above tips, you can actually save hundreds of dollars on your water bill. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this podcast half as much as I enjoyed creating it. And I really do love it. So if you like receiving this information, here's a couple of things I'm asking you to do. Install the free podcast app, available for iOS and Android devices. I've made it super simple to do. On your phone, just go to boknows.homes/apps. That's apps. And there, you'll get the option for your device's App Store downloads. Another thing you can do is go visit this show on the web at boknows.homes/142. That's this episode. There you'll see the show notes and all the links. Once there, you'll also see a little microphone which enables you to leave me a comment or suggestions on how to make this podcast better. Lastly, if you really want to show me some love, give me a 5-star rating. Again, I've made it super simple. Just go to lovethepodcast.com/boknows. All these links are in the show notes, which again are at boknows.homes/ and then the episode. I look forward to hearing from you. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Bo Kaufman of RE/MAX Performance Realty. Are you thinking of buying or selling a house or a condo in Winnipeg? Call Bo at 204-333-2202. Remember, Bo knows real estate.
That's all, folks.